Good evening, everyone. This is the first time I've addressed all of you in a while, so I just wanted to come out and say that I'm only going to be taking a few questions. This is just going to be a quick thing. It's not going to be anything super long like we're used to doing, but I want to come out before I take any questions. I just want to say that that I have grave concerns about what just occurred in the Senate. HB 001 is unconstitutional. It is dangerous to be suggesting that we can do this as Congress. Now, as far as the legislation itself is concerned, I don't have a problem with some aspects of the legislation because I was digging into the rest of it, and it's very interesting, to say the least. But I do agree that it was a massive oversight when we initially wrote the Constitution to have the presidential terms at 10 years, with the House of Representatives and Senate being only 2 and 6 year terms. I do realize that with having 2 10-year terms, if you got somebody in there that was a tyrant, it would be virtually impossible to reverse the damage done in a 20-year period. That is to say, if after 20 years he even allows himself to be removed. So yes, I do agree with the aspect that a 5-year presidential term is much better than a 10-year term, and I would support an amendment to the Constitution that allows that. However, this is not an amendment. This is a simple House bill. And constitutionally speaking, the only way to alter an original article or an amendment of the Constitution is to pass an amendment. Obviously, the Speaker doesn't seem interested in that because he would rather jam it through Congress with a very slim majority. I don't know what he's thinking, though, because the moment it hits my desk, I'm going to veto it, and at that point, it's going to require 2/3 majority, which I don't know if they'll get. I would be surprised if they do get it, but even if this bill does pass, and it triggers a snap presidential election, I would sue, and I would probably win in the Supreme Court because this is a constitutional violation. In order for an amendment to be passed, it requires either a convention of 2/3 of the states, or it requires 2/3 of Congress to bring this amendment to attention. At that point, it has to pass both Congress, 2/3 majority in both houses, and then it has to go through 3/4 of the states have to say yes to ratify it. That process could take years, as it has in previous constitutions, but the Speaker obviously is not interested in that. Now, what's shocking to me is what's inside the bill, besides the presidential term limit, which I don't know how they would enforce because the executive branch enforces the legislative branch, but constitutionally speaking, I can't enforce something that's unconstitutional. So even if the law passes, I don't have to, we can't abide by it, constitutionally speaking. But regardless, the Speaker is also trying to jam in legislation to try and reestablish income tax, which is unconstitutional. The federal government does not have the power to have income tax. Now, state governments do, but the Commerce Clause does not give us the ability to tax income. It doesn't do that. That's not what the Commerce Clause is, and that's one of the previous problems with the United States, where they had income tax, which was unconstitutional. Unconstitutional. Okay? So the Speaker wants to jam that through. Also, there's some other things in there, such as expanding mail-in votes, which we've already been through this 3 times now. Every election we've had in Pedata and the previous U.S. elections had this problem. He's trying to reestablish that. He's trying to limit the Second Amendment right. He's trying to create a federal firearm registry, which is illegal and unconstitutional, specifically outlined in the Constitution. He's trying to limit the magazine capacity. He's trying to limit what type of guns you can buy, which is also unconstitutional. And I also signed an executive order that says that you are allowed to purchase any firearm that you desire. He's trying to and with that he's trying to reestablish the ATF, which, again, unconstitutional. He wants to establish other federal agencies to monitor taxes. That taxes are up to the states. The only thing the federal government is supposed to do in regards to budget is to make sure all states, is in Pedopal's case is 12, make sure all 12 states have the money that they need to pass the budget that we set for them. If they don't have the money, then they got to go back and do it again. And if any state has an objection to the budget, they have to go back and do it again, which is why the budget process takes a long time. However, we have not had debt yet because the federal government only spends the money it makes. We don't deficit spend. He's also trying to allow for deficit spending again, which is also extremely dangerous, causes hyperinflation. He wants to reestablish Social Security. He wants to reestablish, which I don't have a problem with necessarily, but it has to be done in a specific way. He wants to reestablish government paid health care. This is bad. This is bad news, and it's all in this one bill. And I just call on the senators and representatives that voted yes to have this continued reconciliation. What were you thinking? Are you trying to diminish the Constitution only 6 years after we just wrote the thing? Or is it something else? I'm confused here. It's got to be, did you even read the bill other than the term limit part? Or did you not read it? You must not have read it then. You either didn't read it or you're part of the whole thing, which is even more scary to think about. We already have rhinos in the midst, and we just got here. But on that note, I'm going to take questions now. So, go ahead.
Could you please explain to everybody what happened with the census error and how it's going to be fixed going forward? Because we should have no election, should we not? How's this really
All right.
going?
Okay, so the Speaker of the House, I don't know where he plans on. Oh, I'm sorry. I just blanked out. I just remember. I know what you're talking about now. The census error. So we had a massive census error. So basically, what happened was, when we did our initial census and established the House districts for the last House election, whoever the hell coded the database miscoded the state codes for several states, Georgia being one of them, Mississippi, Kentucky was one of them, and Virginia was also one of them, and it resulted in massive amounts of counties and population counts being attributed to the wrong state. And when the Census Bureau reviewed its data, they showed how wrong it was, and we're going to have a massive redistricting. It's going to result in Kentucky losing a seat, Mississippi's going to lose 2, West Virginia is going to gain a seat, Florida is going to, I think it's going to keep its seats, and then Georgia's going to gain a seat. So, with all that being said, the whole thing was just a debacle, and we're trying to fix it now. So, as far as the redistricting is concerned, that's going to have to wait until the next House election, because, first of all, we've had way too many elections in Pedopal in the last couple of years. We've had way too many special elections. So the House is going to stay as it is until the next session initiates itself, which would be in 2072 or 2071 is when the next House session begins, or the January of that next year. So that's really all I have to say. All right, one more question.
Is the reason why you're not supporting the House bill because you're afraid of another election that you're going to lose, or is it?
No.
I don't understand what you're talking
No,
about.
I'm not afraid of another election. I know that if I ran for presidential election again, I'm almost certain that I would win again. That's not the issue I'm having here. The issue is the constitutional crisis we are creating by trying to pass this bill. Because if this goes through, it sets a precedent that amendments are no longer required to alter the document, and that is extremely dangerous because if somebody has a simple majority in both houses of Congress or a supermajority in both houses, they can completely alter the Constitution, which is not what was intended when we wrote the thing. It's too dangerous. It's too dangerous to be flippant. The rules need to stay the rules unless something massive happens where we need to change the rules. In that case, that's what the amendment is for. But this is not right. And the only reason why the Speaker is doing it in this way is because he wants to jam in all this other legislation through HB1. Pork barrel legislation has returned to the former United States, and it has returned in the form of Speaker Stickenham. Also, I will go ahead and announce that if Congress passes an amendment or proposes an amendment that would limit the term of the president to 5 years, I will support it, and I will encourage the states to support it, which will surely lead to its passing very shortly. So the amendment process will be basically overhauled, or in this one instance will be completely different than it should be, because I support it and everybody supports it. So that's no. Okay, I said no more question. No more question. All right. Thank you all for being here. Could you please escort them out? Thank you so much.